Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to his confounder, Acharya, his divine grace, Laisi Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupada. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. We welcome you to the beginning of a new week. Today is Monday, and today we are fortunate we are having dear God brother, His Grace, JNANA Prabhu will be speaking to us from the Srimad Bhagavatam today. Today's Bhagavatam class, we're going to be treating the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8, text number 22. So JNANA Prabhu, welcome to Hare Krishna Africa platform, your own house.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
So thank you very much for honoring the invitation. So if you're ready, I'll put the verse on the screen and we can start.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisance. God bless you, Prabhupada. God bless you, Guru Dev. God bless to all of you. So thank you very much for the time. I'm grateful to the administrators of this platform for giving me this opportunity to speak to devotees. I'm grateful, and I hope that I learn many things by reading the scripture with you. So like Prabhu said, we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, chapter 8, verse number 22. So I'll read the Sanskrit and the translation alone, and then I will read the purport alone as well. So it says, Yo vani sayinam sarga vasandasya cha sambhava atmano bandha moksha cha vyavastanam swarupata. Word for word translation say, yeah, all those va ida anusayinam merged into the body of the Lord, sarga creation, pasandasya of the infidels, cha end, sambhava appearance, atsamana of the living beings, bandha conditioned, moksha being liberated, cha also, vyavastanam being situated, swarupata in an unconditioned state. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada K. Just Prabhupada K. Translation. Please also explain how merged in the body of the Lord living beings are created and how the infidels appear in the world. Also, please explain how the unconditioned living entities exist. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, the progressive devotee of the Lord must inquire from the bona fide spiritual master how living entities merged in the body of the Lord again come back at the time of creation. There are two kinds of living entities. There are the ever-liberated, unconditioned living beings, as well as the ever-conditioned living beings. I will take it again. There are the ever-liberated, unconditioned living beings, as well as the ever-conditioned living beings. Of the ever-conditioned living beings, there are two divisions. They are the faithful and the infidels. Of the faithful, there are again two divisions, namely the devotees and the mental speculators. The mental speculators desire to merge into the existence of the Lord or to become one with the Lord. Whereas the devotees of the Lord desire to keep separate identities and constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. The devotees who are not fully purified, as well as the empiric philosophers, become conditioned again during the next creation for further purification. Such conditioned souls become liberated by further progress of devotional service to the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit asked all these questions from the bona fide spiritual master in order to become fully equipped in the science of God. Hare Krishna. Omagana Timirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshu Umbilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guravi Namaha. Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhotare Shri Mate Kavichandra Swamini Tinamini. Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhotare Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nerevesi Sunyabadi Vashatya Disatarini. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yo Vanu Sayinam Sarga Pashanda Siya Chak Sambhavaha Atmanano Banda Mokshacha Vyavastanam Swa Rupataha. Please also explain how merged in the body of the Lord the living beings are created and how the infidels appear in the world. Also, please explain how the unconditioned living entities exist. Hare Krishna. So once again, you're all welcome. Thank you for the time. Today, I decided not to bring my people because there's another program they are waiting for me. So from here, I have to go there. That's why I didn't bring my people here today. So thank you very much. I was here like 2:30, but unfortunately, about 5 minutes at the time, my internet started misbehaving. I noticed that the data was finished. So I called the office for them to rectify that. That's why I was a bit late. Then I've been here more than 45 minutes. Today, I've been indoors, so I decided to come here very early. So thank you very much for the privilege and the time. In fact, because I was sitting there, I was trying to read the whole chapter, the chapter 8. So I started from the verse 1. And it's so amazing that Parikshit Maharaj actually asked questions from the verse 1 all the way to verse 26. He asked questions from verse 1 all the way to the verse 26. It is only when we got to the 27 that Sukadev Goswami started answering him. So when I was reading through, I was like, so how is he going to be able to grasp all the questions and answer them? And one other important thing that I also noticed is that Maharaj Parikshit, even though a king, a Kshatriya, he was so learned and very intelligent, because you can understand that all throughout the verse 1 to the verse 28, all the questions that were asked are very, very deep questions, not questions that will be asked by ordinary person. So I was asking myself, is it that Parikshit Maharaj, right from the beginning, has been a very powerful devotee? I'm talking about like a scholar devotee. Or it's just because that the little chance he had with Sukadev Goswami and those serious devotees, that's why he has acquired so much knowledge. So I went to the verse number 24, 25, and then 26. So Parikshit Maharaj was saying that I have acquired so much understanding, deep information about the Lord because I have heard you speaking about the Lord. Because I was wondering, Kshatriyas are supposed to be very learned and scholarly, but he asked so many deep questions. So I was kind of confused. How is he able to ask all these questions? But like I said, I think the verse 24, 25, 26, then you find out that he was actually saying that by having the opportunity to hear from you speaking about the Lord has given me this deep understanding of the supreme law. But what I wanted to focus much on today had to do with Sri Prabhupada's purport. Sri Prabhupada said many things that is very profound and need more explanation. Sri Prabhupada says that we have two different kinds of devotees: the ever conditioned and the ever unconditioned. And he said the ever conditioned have two different. I want to just get the word Sri Prabhupada used. So Sri Prabhupada said we have the ever conditioned and then the ever unconditioned. But he said the ever conditioned, there are two. I said there are two kinds of living entities. There are the ever liberated, unconditioned living beings, as well as the ever conditioned living beings. There are two divisions as well. So they are the faithful and the infidels. So it means that the first group is the eternally liberated souls. They are never conditioned. Then the second grouping is those who are ever conditioned. And even among the ever conditioned, we have two different kinds of people, living entities there. The devotees and the infidels. That is those who are faithful and those who are infidels. And even among the faithful devotees, there are again two divisions. That are namely the devotees and the mental speculators. So we have those who are never conditioned and those who are ever conditioned. Among those who are ever conditioned, there are still two, the faithful and then the infidels. Then among these also we have two other groupings. That's from the faithful, we have the devotees and then we have the mental speculators. So which means that for one to become a devotee or for one to even start the practicing of devotional service, it means that you have been favored. Because even among those who are faithful, some are just mental speculators. And Sri Prabhupada said in the purpose, the mental speculators, they desire to merge into the existence of the Lord or to become one with the Lord. Whereas the devotees of the Lord desire to keep separate identities and constantly engage in the service of the Lord. So devotees who practice devotional service, bhakti yoga, we don't want to become one with God. We don't want to merge into God and become Him. But we remain as individual souls to constantly engage ourselves in the service of the Lord. I do remember very well when I joined ISKCON newly. My understanding of many things, I would say now, I would say maybe I've changed a little bit. When we joined the society newly, we felt things were kind of difficult. Because like you are living your normal way of doing things and you want to now enter a new way of life. So as a beginner, you are able to differentiate between your normal life as a human being and then your life as a devotee. That's from the beginning stage. But as time goes on, when you begin to read the books, you begin to listen to the lectures, and then you try as much as possible to implement these teachings in your life. somehow or the other, your life or your way of doing things become resolute, just one. Now there's no difference between your life as an individual person and the life of you as a devotee. Now, the way you do things, how you relate to people, is not based on your understanding as an ordinary human being, but as a devotee of the Lord. It makes things very, very easy. For instance, a devotee who is blessed with some material assets, if your understanding of devotional service is not very enough or deep, at times you might have a separate life as an individual who has been blessed with material asset, as different from a devotee who is somehow blessed by Krishna with this material asset. Which means that on your normal way of doing things, you might do things that does not even resonate with your devotional principles. But the more your understanding of Krishna consciousness matures, wherever you find yourself, you don't need to struggle to bring the meaning of you being a personal person, like an individual person, and then trying to resonate that with your personal life as a devotee. But whatever you do falls within devotional service. When you're able to bring your understanding on that level, it makes devotional service very, very easy. For instance, anyone who is unable to bridge the gap between his personal life and his life as a devotee, if this person finds himself in business, as a normal person, you want to sell and make more profit. And through this means, you might even end up cheating some people, putting or maybe big, interest and profit. That's a human being, a normal person who is engaged in the business life. But when you begin to think that, no, I'm not just a business person, but I'm a devotee. And as a devotee, I am supposed to be very, very moderate in whatever I do. So now you don't go to the extreme of putting so much charges on your services or your products because you are a devotee. Another example, you are a married person. So under normal circumstances, how you love to treat your wife and your kids as a normal human being might be different from how a devotee should treat the wife and the kids in the house. So the more deeper we begin to understand devotional service, now we are able to bring the two lives together. So your life as an individual who is a married person to the life of a person who is a devotee. So now how you deal with your wife and kids in the house is not an individual person, but as a devotee of the Lord. You find yourself among Karmis, there is a tendency of you acting like an individual person with these people, different from your own way of doing things as a devotee. But the more we grow in understanding spiritual life, the more we listen to the lectures and we try to practice or relate to the things that we are being taught. Now, the life of an individual living with a karmis and the life of a devotee becomes one. So now you're unable to differentiate between your life as an individual person as against a life of a devotee. So you don't need to even go out there to even be preaching to people, telling people I'm a Hare Krishna person. Just by people being with you, being around you, they are able to understand that he or she is a different person. He does things differently, and it seems to be so unique. So when one gets to this point, now devotional service becomes easier. This is my own realization. When one gets to that point, that your personal life and the life of you as a devotee should not be different, then things become very, very easy. Many a times, we can only do good things when we think of doing good. There are people like that. Before they will be able to do any good thing, they have to sit down and think about it. But the more we do good things, continuously and consistently and persistently, the way of doing good things become part of us, that we don't need to sit down to plan and think about doing good before we do good, that we spontaneously do things that is good to people. So with the little understanding that I've acquired from reading the scriptures, the lectures that I've listened to, and some little association I have with some senior devotees, now I have come to the realization that as a devotee, your life, wherever you find yourself, should depict that you are a devotee. You should not have a duplicitous life where your life as an individual is different from your life as a devotee. You know, those of us that live with Christians or maybe other religious group around, for instance, somebody will tell you, okay, you just offended me. Wait, I want to go to church and come. When I return, that's where you will see my real character. That kind of understanding. So this person thinks, okay, today is Sunday. I'm going to church, and as a church personality, I am not supposed to get involved with argument and quarrels and confrontations. But let me go to church, and when I come now, I have the chance of showing you my real nature. So the more we become more, accustomed to devotional service, now we don't have this duplicitous lifestyle where we think, okay, let me go to church and come and deal with you the way a normal person would deal with you. But you said, okay, I'm a devotee, this person offended me. I am not supposed to confront this person, or I'm not supposed to do ABCD because I'm a devotee. So when we get to this point, devotional service becomes very, very easy. At this point, whatever we encounter, whether it's a bad thing, whether it's a good thing, we accept it in good faith. We don't lament so much. And even if we want to lament, our lamentation does not last. Like 15, 20 minutes now, we come to the realization of how we need to act as devotees. At this point, life becomes very, very easy. Easy in the sense that we try to implement the things that we've been taught. We try to implement the things that we have learned from our acharyas, what we've been taught from the books, and then life becomes very, very easy. I have a lot of people around me because of what I do, and I don't necessarily tell them that you should not do A, B, C, D. I have never, ever done that. But gradually, all those around me, indirectly or knowingly, they are all trying gradually, picking up that I can say most of my workers, at least I know most of them, about 90% of them are vegetarians. I'm talking about those who are very close to me. But there's no one single day that I have sat down with them and I tell them, don't do A, B, C, D because I don't do these things. But as they keep on following you, they end up picking up from you because you're having a lifestyle that's not duplicious. Your life as a devotee and your life as an individual person resonates. So when people are with you, they end up trying to emulate whatever action you perform. Recently, I went to South Africa with some of my team. We are about 8 of us. So they organized some tour, South Africa, so we have to go to places. So we went for a tour one day, a city tour. So, and according to the agency, they said we have free lunch. We have free lunch. I was in the car. So I waited like 15, 20 minutes and they were still at the restaurant waiting for food to be served. So later on, I decided to just go there and get some vegetables and fruit. When I went there, I was surprised. All of them had vegetarian meals. 8 of them, all of them. So I was trying to see whether I would see some fish or something that I wouldn't sit around their seat. I would go and sit somewhere. But I noticed that all of them, they have vegetarian food. So I asked them, why you people don't want to go and eat your meat and stuff? And I was surprised that all of them told me that more than 6 months, 8 months, they have been vegetarians. I was shocked. I said, how did you guys become vegetarians all of a sudden? And it's like, no, for 4 months now, I've been practicing. I don't take anything. One of them said, I've been taking only egg. I don't take meat. So all I'm trying to say here is, we get to some point in our life. If we're able to merge our personal life with our devotional life, it makes things a little bit easier. Recently, one of my offices where, I rent a place there in the Westland. The whole building got bent. I don't know, maybe the devotees had this. It was in the news. The fire service men were up there and then the whole building collapsed on them. I was in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I was at the airport when I got that information. So throughout the whole period, I was okay. You know what I mean? I didn't tell any one of them, those 8 people that I went, I didn't say anything to them. So when we go to South Africa the following day, that's when they heard the news. So they wanted to come and inform me, boss. I said, what is it? Is it about the office? They said, yes. Have you heard? I said, yes, I heard it yesterday when we were in Ethiopia at the airport. So I was informed. I said, and you have not shown any lamentation, any sign of something that you've lost something, because the office, we have so much. That's why I have my studio. So we have so much machines there, a lot of things that we have. So it's 2 shops. Everything there got bent. Everything got bent. So they were like surprised that I was not lamenting and I was not showing any sign of somebody who have lost something big. So I was like, see, what I need to worry about is to try as much as possible to practice my devotional service. When I'm in tune with the Lord, whatever happens to me happens for a good reason. The Lord knows why this must happen. So if the Lord allows such a thing to happen to me, it means that he knows that this is good for me at this point in my life. So who am I to complain and to lament? That's why I feel it is okay. So just within 2-3 days time, I started thinking about one thing. That all this while I've been thinking of having my own building where I will have my offices and maybe studios and stuff. But anytime this thought comes to mind, I still feel I have a place I've rented for 5 years. So I still have a space. Let me just manage it for now like that. But within 3 days time, I started thinking of it seriously that, no, this is the best time for you to have an office. You must have it now. So I was in South Africa when I called an engineer that I have the land there. Please, can you design something for me? Within 2 months, I want us to have the whole building there so I can have my office there. And as I'm speaking now, we are almost like halfway. So yesterday, I was just thinking about this. I said, yes, it is a very serious thing, a serious loss, losing all these things in the office. But now you are having the mindset of having a property that will be in your own name, which is far better than you renting someone's shop. So what I'm trying to say here is that when we read our books, we get association from devotees, we listen to lectures, we should try as much as possible, try to resonate our personal life with the life of us as the devotees. Then it makes things a little bit easier. So Srila Prabhupada say in the purport that we have different levels of devotees, the eternally liberated ones, and then those who are conditioned, ever conditioned. And even those who are ever conditioned, we have 2, the faithful and the infidels. And even so, with the faithful, we have 2 different kinds of devotees. We have the devotee who worship the Lord through Bhakti Yoga, and those devotees who are impersonalists, those who are empiric philosophers. Srila Prabhupada says that those who don't practice Bhakti, they will go and come back. But for those who understand the Lord and practice devotional service, they come back. They go back home, back to Godhead to be situated in the original position as a servant of the Supreme Lord. So how do we access all this? We can do that by gradually understanding the philosophy, listening to senior devotees speak, reading Srila Prabhupada books, and try as much as possible to marry our personal life with these kind of teachings. And when we are able to do all these things, devotional service becomes very, very easy. For instance, those who are brahmacharis for years, some have been brahmachari for 20 years, 30 years. If any karmi hears that a man has stayed for 25, 30 years without sex, they will say, how is that possible? How can a man stay for 25, 30 years without sex? For the karmis, they see this as impossible. But for us devotees, we understand that there are devotees who have been there for all these years without engaging in sex life. At times, when you tell people you don't eat meat, you don't eat fish, you don't eat egg, they will ask you, so how do you enjoy? So for the Kami, enjoyment lies in eating flesh, eating eggs, and eating fish and all that. But for us devotees, whatever food we want to eat, as vegetarian, we can prepare that and eat and enjoy them. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, I don't know whether I'm making sense. What I'm trying to say here is, if we are able to marry our life as individuals with the life of the scriptures, the life of the teachings of the acharyas, what we have been reading from the books, if you're able to marry the two together, then devotional service becomes very easy, like a vegetarian who doesn't eat meat, who doesn't eat fish, who doesn't eat egg, who doesn't eat anything that's contrary to the scriptures, but still enjoy his life, and he doesn't force to do these things. It comes automatically. When a devotee goes to the kitchen to go and prepare food, you don't have to start thinking, okay, I don't want to use cow meat. I don't want to use goat. Okay, let me use, no. When a devotee gets to the kitchen, automatically, the things you're supposed to use to prepare your food is already there. You know them already. You prepare your food and enjoy them. You don't have to struggle to think about how to prepare your vegetarian food because it is part of you. So this is what I'm trying to say, that when we try to leave the teachings, the scriptures, the little advice we have from our acharyas, then it makes devotional service very, very easy, that mentally we become very sober and our personal life become a little bit fruitful. And I know very well that if we are able to be in this kind of mindset and we leave this material world, the scripture promises us that we might not come back to this world. And even if we come back here, we'll come back here to become good devotees of the Lord, for us to be able to continue our service to the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. So I would like to end here. If there are questions or comments or contributions, these are welcome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for speaking, JNANA Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So, dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, please, you may unmute and go ahead and speak.
So let me read the verse again. So the translation says, please also explain how, merged in the body of the Lord, living beings are created and how the infidels appear in the world. Also, please explain how the unconditioned living entities exist. That is the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, verse number 22.
Yeah, so my first question is from the text itself, where Maharaj Parikshit is asking this question. Here, how the infidels appear in the world. Can you help elaborate on this for us?
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. I know you have the answer, but you just want to try your disciple. Anyway, so in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gave this categorization that we have the ever conditioned and the ever unconditioned. The ever conditioned, we have two different kind of the ever conditioned. So Srila Prabhupada said of the ever conditioned living beings, there are two divisions. So devotees, I mean the souls who are ever conditioned, there are two divisions. They are the faithful and the infidels. And you say that of the faithful, there are again two divisions, namely the devotees and the mental speculators. So now, what it means to say that the devotees and the mental speculators are on one side. So devotees are those, like you know, devotees are those who practice devotional service through Bhakti Yoga. And then the other ones are those who are what's the name of those who think that we can merge the Lord, we can go to the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, the impersonalist philosophers. So the infidels are those who are not part of these. So the infidels are not the mind speculators, mental speculators, and they are not devotees also. So I think some of the part of the Shema Bhagavad talks about those who are eternally into damnation, those who will never have the chance to go back to Godhead, and for them, they go deep, deep, deep down. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about those who, because of how they position themselves, they are pushed down into the lowest part of the creation. So these are considered to be the infidels. The devotees who practice devotional service and those who are mental speculators, there's chance for them that the devotees who are unable to even achieve liberation or unable to go back to Godhead in this lifetime, they might come back and practice and go back. And the mental speculators, even if they go back they are able to merge to the Brahma Jyoti, they will still have to come back to this material world, and should purpose in the purport that they will still practice one day and go back to the spiritual world. But the infidels, even though here it is not explained, but the infidels are those who don't even have any chance at all, because they are not mental speculators and they are not even devotees. For them, they will go deep, deep down to the lowest parts of the creation. So I'm very much sure that when Shukadev Goswami starts answering all the about 26 verses questions of Maharaj Parikshit, he will come to that point where he will explain specifically who are the infidels. But from some part that I've read ever before, I might not be able to get the verse now. These are souls that will be pushed down deep into the lower part of the creation, because there is no chance for them to even practice devotional service or to serve the Lord in any sense. So this is what I think, or this is what I feel I know. So if senior devotees here will be able to explain more about this, or Sadhu Prabhu yourself will be able to explain to the benefit of all of us, please bless us.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you for the explanation. By your explanation, looks like more of describing who the infidels are, as opposed to how they come into being.
You mean how they come to being?
Yeah, because that is the question.
Okay, sorry. Then let me go there before you come in.
Parikshit is asking.
Okay.
Yeah, how the infidels appear in the world.
Okay, so like I said, when I was reading the previous verses, all the way to the 27 before
Shukadev.
Sukadev Goswami starts speaking, answering the question. It is said that there are different levels of annihilation. So at one point, the whole material world will be destroyed. And that is from the highest planet to the lowest planet. So the souls who are still here in the material world, who are not pure yet, they all go back into the body of the Supreme Lord. And then in the new creation, they will be brought back. So if the question is, where does the infidels come from? The infidels definitely come from the body of the Lord, as all the other souls. I think the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the parts of the Lord where souls manifested from. That some came from the eyes, some came from the nose, some came from the upper part of his body, some even came from the feet, and some came from the anus. So definitely, like the demons and other forms, they all came from the body of the Lord originally. But if they are unable to attain liberation, all souls go back to the universal body of the Lord. And then during the new creation, they come back to the material world to start their own process of attaining purification. So yes, the soul, the infidels, the devotees, and the demons, the Rakshasas, the Yakshas, all forms of beings came from the body of the Lord. And if after dissolution, annihilation, all souls who are not pure yet goes back to the body of the Lord, And when there's going to be new creation, they will come back to the mature world to start practicing their own life. Hare Krishna. I'm sure, Prabhu, you can add something to it, so you can go ahead.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you for the explanation. Thank you. Anyone else with something to ask, share, say? Shrimad Vara Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna. I'm in a noisy place, so please can leave here. So, Jana Shakshi Prabhu, Hare Krishna, my humble obeisance, our glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
So, thank you. Made a very nice delivery. But there's one thing that runs through your class. Being a vegetarian. One would almost think that being a vegetarian is the goal of being Krishna conscious. And when we read in the purport the different type of devotees, there are the eternally liberated souls. And I would want you to tell us, what do you think of Garuda? Is he an eternally liberated soul or a conditioned soul?
Okay. Anyway, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much for this question. So why I brought in a vegetarian, it was an example that I wanted to cite that, devotional service, we have our principles. And these 4 principles are no meat, no fish, no egg, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. So it is assumed that if one wants to practice devotional service, then this tenet must be followed. So, and when these tenets are followed, it means that we have a step ahead. It doesn't necessarily qualify us to become pure devotees, but they are stepping stones towards becoming good devotees. That's why I cited that example. I'm very much aware that during initiation, the guru asks you, I am ready to assist you to go back to Godhead. So are you ready to follow these principles? No meat, no fish, no egg, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex, like that. Then you say yes. And are you ready to chant the minimum of 16 rounds? Say yes, I do. Which means that if one is able to follow these tenets, you are given a step ahead that will be able to help you, assist you, or facilitate you to become better situated in devotional service. So in the sense of us on this planet, as eternally or as ever conditioned souls, there are rules and regulations for us. But when it comes to other forms of life, they also have their rules. But when it comes to Garuda, Prabhu, as we asked, Garuda, we know his position is the eternal career of the Lord. So some of these petty principles that will help us be the earthly beings to make some kind of advancement does not comprise them. The Lord himself, if you read the Canto 10 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that's the Krishna book, the Lord did a lot of things that as we devotees, like individual devotees on this planet, if we engage in doing those things now, it will be considered to be some blasphemy. For instance, the Lord going to dance with beautiful girls, and according to the scriptures, even Radharani was married to a man, but late in the night he'll go and see the Lord. So this kind of rules and regulation does not affect the Lord and his personal associates. So even though human beings on the earthly platform I advise that for us to be able to make advancement in spiritual life, there are few things that we are supposed to be following. One of them is to abstain from taking flesh, souls on this platform. But if the Lord decides to eat meat, I mean, the Lord will not become impure by doing that. But for us, we are supposed to abstain from them. And there are many, many other examples in the scripture when the Lord does by killing demons. The Lord even killed a bull who is supposed to be a cow. I remember when we went to India, Vrindavan, and they were given the story of how Radha Kund and then Shama Kund appeared, and the story behind it, because the Lord killed this bull who was a demon disguised in that form. But it is said in the scripture that one who kills a cow might even go to hell as many years as the hair on the body of the cow. But does the Lord have to go to hell because he killed a bull? So the point is that, Prabhu, Garuda is a personal associate of the Supreme Lord. And for that position, some of these laws might not affect them. That is my little understanding. But for us on this platform, on this earthly platform, for us to be able to make some spiritual advancement, we are advised to follow some tenets. These tenets will be able to help us. Many a times, when we are doing a Kadasi, I ask myself, is it that I am doing a Kadasi because I think that I have some previous bad karma and I want to eradicate them? Or by doing this Ekadasi, it gives me clean mind, it gives me an empty stomach for me to be able to focus more on the Lord. So there are many, many things that we are supposed to follow as individuals on this earthly platform that will help us to make some advancement. It makes things a little bit easier. Like all of us are very much aware that those who are real vegetarians, who abstain from meat, fish, egg, and they are not just doing it for doing sake, they do right from their heart. They spontaneously develop the attitude of mercy and compassion. Even those who are not Hare Krishna devotees, but practicing a vegetarian life, you'll understand, you see them and you see the aura around them, how sober they look, which means that these are some of the steps that will help us to become better devotees. But when it comes to Garuda, my little understanding and the little that I've heard from some senior devotees, Garuda is a personal associate of the Lord, and some of this Lord does not come because Garuda is not a vegetarian. And for the fact that Garuda is not vegetarian does not make him contaminated or impure, because he's eternally associated with the Supreme Lord. So some of these laws are for us. Even the angels up there, the demigods, at times there are some things they do that we the humans we can't do. They do a lot of horrible things there. And some of these things are not even considered to be sin. So for human beings on earthly planets, some of these laws are very good for us to make advancement. So Prabhu, I would say Garuda doesn't become impure because of what he eats, because Garuda is a personal associate of the Lord and he cannot be impure. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Why I asked the question is not to say that becoming vegetarian is not an advancement of spiritual path, neither to discourage people from becoming vegetarian. But Srila Prabhupada many times also mentioned that we are not a vegetarian society. There are many vegetarian society now, and they're making it look like it is. Just like this vegan movement, they're making it look like it's all in all. So sometimes if we're preaching, we shouldn't sound like them, because actually Prabhupada said we're not vegetarians. We're Krishnatarians, because we eat prasad, not just. He said goats and monkeys are also vegetarians. So if anyone wants to proud himself of being vegetarian, Prabhupada immediately reduced that pride and said, look, monkeys and cows are also vegetarians. But we are not just vegetarians, we're Krishnatarians. And not, what we can actually encourage people to become is to become Krishnatarians, those who eat prasad. That's the point I wanted to underline. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I would like to say something before there's any other question. You see, the mode of my preaching is I deal mostly with people who are not devotees. I deal a lot with people who don't know anything about Krishna. So such people, it is always very important for you to preach about morals. So somebody who is not a devotee, and then you want to go and tell the person about Krishna, being a Krishnatarian and all that, how will they understand? Somebody who is a vegetarian finds it easier to become a Krishnatarian than somebody who is a meat eater. So it's a step ahead. So even though our society is not a vegetarian society, but those who are vegetarians, they find it a bit easier to become devotees than those who are not. So like Prabhu has said, we are not preaching to become vegetarians. But if we are vegetarians, it assists us to come to the platform of understanding. In fact, the point is, even what is the reason behind becoming a vegetarian? As humans, this is not about Hare Krishna people. Those who are vegetarians are very, very peace-seeking people. Vegetarians are very compassionate people. Vegetarians are very merciful people, unless they don't understand the reason behind it becoming vegetarians. And for you to be able to attract the mercy of Krishna, you should be able to possess a little mercy. That will qualify you to even be able to ask for mercy. I remember some time ago, that was many years ago, when I was in Nigeria, we were new devotees. We are so much into the philosophy, reading books all the time. And at times you show some kind of sentimentalism because you are neophyte and you are not so much deep in the philosophy. So I was going to work early in the morning during this Muslim, their Salah. So I got to a point where they were slaughtering a cow. You know, Nigeria during that time, everywhere they kill cows. They kill cows almost in every house. So I got to this point when they were slaughtering the cow. And how the cow was acting, because already they have cut the throat, and you could see the cow was still alive. And something was moving from the body, like from the lower part of the stomach, going up, then coming down. So I stood there for like 5 minutes. I was looking at the cow in a very morose mood, and I didn't know that I was kind of shedding tears. I was standing under some storyboarding. So there was this man who was standing out there. I didn't know the man was looking at me. So I was there like 5, 7 minutes to 10 minutes. I was so quiet. So later I saw the man was looking at me. So I started moving. The man said I should wait. I was shaving. I was doing barbering. I was having my board for barbering. So when the man said I should wait, I thought that he wanted to shave. So I waited. The man descended. I said, why are you showing all this kind of mood? Because you saw a cow being slaughtered. So I said, I just felt bad how the animal was acting. So the man asked me, are you a vegetarian? I said, yes, I'm a vegetarian. He said, no wonder. So the point is that when we are vegetarian, even though that is not the ultimate goal of devotional service, but it is a platform that will facilitate us to develop some attitude or some natures that will be able to help us. Gradually, it will facilitate that. So yes, we are not vegetarian organizations. We are devotees. We are Krishnatarians. But like I said, because I speak to a lot of people who are not devotees, I have this way of telling people, the basic is this. To become a devotee, it is good for you to become a vegetarian. And I'm aware that when a person becomes a vegetarian, you know that, okay, even the vegetarian food must first be offered to the Lord before you eat, and then that makes us Krishnatarians. So, Prabhu, thank you very much for that observation. I'm very grateful, but this is how I meant it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Madhuvan Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. All glory to your kingdom. All glory to our Assembly of Devotees. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. So thank you very much for taking so much trouble and giving us this type of lecture. Please, the question that was asked that's how the infidels appear in the world. I think we need to, I just want to shed more light or to express my own how I understand the concept or the question. If we, well, if the lesson, if you look at the third canto, chapter 32, verse 17. So the text stated that such person, that is the materialist, that they are entailed by the mode of passion, and they are full of anxiety and always aspire for sense gratification.
What is the text you referenced?
Third canto, chapter 32, verse 17.
All right, thank you.
We can hear it. So the chapter 32 is titled "The Entanglement in Fruitive Activity." That was when Kapiladi was instructing his mom. So it clearly explained how the materialist. So to explain how the infidel appeared, generally the material world, generally we are spiritual entities, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. But due to circumstances that some living entities, they are envious of the Supreme Lord, and they also want to imitate him. So because of that tendency, the Supreme Lord created this material world so that people who have such tendency, they can exhibit it properly. So, and so therefore, the living entity, when they fall into the material world, they are mostly in the mode of passion and ignorance. So because they are in the mode of passion, they are not interested in liberation. They're only interested in economic development, religiosity, and sense gratification. But they are not interested in liberation. So the majority of people fall into this category. And those who become devotees are just living entities who are fortunate enough to come across a devotee or a spiritual master, and they start the process of devotional service. But generally, we have majority of people transfer as infidel because the material world itself is created for them so that they can exhaust it, trying to imitate the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Jana Chakshu Prabhu, do you have something to say about what he said?
In fact, I was just, I went to Google to get the meaning of infidels. So this reading says that a person who has no religion or whose religion is not that of the majority. So I think the Google is just giving just an ordinary meaning. But I think what Prabhu just said is not very far from what I said from the beginning, because here's the case that we have the faithful. The faithful comprises of mental speculators. Mental speculators are also spiritual people, just that they think that God has no form. And then the devoted that practice devotional service. So those who are not part of these are those who don't want to worship the Lord. And because they don't want to worship the Lord, they go deep down into the another part of the world. So the question was, where did they come from? And like we know, everything came from the body of God. As we know that the body of the Lord, that's where everybody from the eyes, from the nostril, from the mouth, from the hands, from the upper part of his body, from his stomach, from his thighs, from the legs, from the anus. different kind of forms were coming. So definitely the infidels are some of the souls that also came from the body of the Lord. But those who don't worship God, they are not impersonal philosophers and they are not bhakti yogis. They are souls, but they don't even have something like a religion. They don't want to worship. And because of that, they are considered to be infidels. So I think exactly what Prabhu said, it makes sense. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Anyone else with something to say or share before we call it a day?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shri Govinda.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Jan Shasu Prabhu. Dhanyavad
Jai.
Pranams.
Jai Prabhu.
All glory to Gurudev. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, nice lecture, Prabhu. Nice presentation. I have one question here. Speaking of the Lord, compassion and the Lord being so equal to everyone, this nature of the Lord is so powerful that his nature attracts everyone in the universe. This same Lord also explains in the Bhagavad Gita that is equal to everyone. Now, talking of the living entities, you did mention of two living entities, all manifested from the body of the Lord, and one living entity is eternally liberated, and the other is eternally conditioned. So these two forces are coming from the body of the Lord, who is not partial, who is equal to everyone. And then he make one living entity eternally liberated. And one is eternally conditioned. We cannot question the Lord, but one may wonder why these two entities are coming from the body of the Lord, who is not partial and who is equal to everyone. Can you please explain a little bit as to why these two living entities are coming from the impartial body of the same Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Okay, Prabhu, thank you very much. I'm very much aware that you are just asking for my own benefit. Okay, the fact of the matter is, the Lord does not make some souls ever conditioned and some ever unconditioned. It is our own choosing. We should not forget that after every destruction, souls are absorbed back into the universal body of the Lord. So during new creations, souls are brought back to material existence based on their previous conditions. And as far as we don't know exactly when the material creation started, according to the scripture, nobody can pinpoint the day material world started. But we can say there have been many creations. So for instance, if the previous destruction, I was a thief and somebody was a devotee, because we were not pure, we all absorbed into the universal body of the Lord. Now there's going to be a new creation. So we don't expect that the soul that was a thief in the previous life and the soul that was a devotee in the previous life will come and occupy the same position. I don't think that wouldn't be fair. So yes, the Lord is not partial, but based on our own deeds, the Lord grant us what will help us to fulfill our heart desires. I've been giving this example anytime I'm speaking to my following, that if somebody steals a goat and the person is sent to the court, and based on all the evidence, the judge pronounce a terrible judgment on this thief, that because of this act, go to jail for 1 year. Ordinarily, we would say that it's the judge that jailed this individual. But the truth of the matter is, it is not the judge that jailed him, but his deed that jailed him. So it is not the Supreme Lord who is making some people eternally liberated and some eternally, into damnation, but based on our deeds, our actions. I've also been given this example many a times, especially when I'm talking about Maya in the Christian way, what they call Satan. And the Christian story says that Satan was Lucifer. He was the leader of the angels. He was a very powerful musician. Then he got to a point, he became envious of the position of God, and then he was able to gather many angels to be on his side. And then they decided to fight and compete with the Lord. So the point here is, everybody commits some sin in the Christian way of thinking, and they think that Satan is the cause of their sin. Okay? When a Christian commits any crime or any sin, he says that, oh, I'm sorry, it was not my doing, Satan caused it. So everybody tends to accuse or blame Satan for their own bad way of doing things. But the scripture says that Satan was Lucifer, he was a great angel. So it means that before Satan, there was no sin. So how did he become sinful in the first place? Then the Bible says that he thought that why is it that it is only God that's been worshipped? So I wanted to go and compete with him, which means that the sin started from the mind of Lucifer that made him into Satan. So whatever you will become in the next life will be based on how you are living your life now. So it is not God who is going to make you eternally conditioned or make you eternally unconditioned, but it is based on the previous life. So don't forget that we have had many creation. After destruction, there's going to be a new creation. Then souls must come back to inhabit this material universe. We are coming with some past luggage. So those past luggage will make some people eternally liberated and some eternally conditioned. So Prabhu Govinda, I don't know whether it makes sense to you. The Lord is not partial. It's based on our needs.
Thank you for the explanation. But you see, the question is, there is a fallible and infallible. That is eternally liberated. They are infallible. And fallible are the eternally conditioned. So there are souls who never fall at all from the spiritual world. They never fall at all. These are the question I'm asking. But what the answer you are giving is pertaining to the fallen conditioned souls. Of course, we know that the Lord is not partial. The Lord gives to us what we deserve. Means that we've acted for a particular destiny. And so if the destiny is coming to us, we don't have to blame Krishna, but we have to blame our own deeds, our own self. But what I'm asking is about the infallible and fallible. That's the question I'm trying to.
What makes them infallible? What makes them infallible is they will not fall. And why wouldn't they fall? Because they have been in the condition that will not make them fall. And those that fall, what makes them fall? They create a situation for them to fall. Like the Satan we talk about in the Bible, he was an angel. He was a great leader. So why did he fall? Because he created a situation to fall. And I don't think it is God himself who is creating some souls to be fallible and some to be infallible. If God does that, then it becomes partial. So even in the spiritual world, the individuality is still there. We have our free will even in the spiritual world. So those that want to keep their free will intact and follow exactly what the Lord wants to please the Lord, they become infallible. But those who want to misuse their free will a little bit in a way, then somehow or the other now, there's a possibility of they falling into the material world. I don't think it's the Lord who is causing that. If the Lord did do that, then it becomes very partial. Anyway, this question, I remember sometime we had a debate in the temple. Gurudas Prabhu have a way of explaining it. Me, I don't want to go that direction. Gurudas Prabhu have a way of explaining this. And that's how he says that those souls in the material world, we have never been in the spiritual world. We just came from the body of the Mahavishnu. So these souls are the souls that can fall, that can go back, but they are souls that are always in the spiritual world, not from the Mahavishnu platform, but they arrive from the beginning of, before even Balaram have to divide him, manifest into a different form, and then we get the four forms. There are souls that have been in the spiritual world. But those of us that have been falling, we come from the Mahavishnu platform. So this is how Gurudas Prabhu explained it. But I remember I read a book from Mahadini Swami. Someone asked this very question. And he said that those that fall into the material world, because he says that in the kingdom of perfection, there's no question of imperfection. So if we were in the spiritual world, there is no question that we can even commit ill there or evil, because that place there's no sin. So how is it possible that one can even think evil for you to even fall down in the material world? So the answer he gave, that to me, it makes so much sense, says, not that we committed any crime in the spiritual, because in the spiritual world, it is a kingdom of perfection. There can't be imperfection there. But for instance, a soul in the spiritual world, and you think or you desire to create something nice for the Lord. This is not evil. Okay? You are in the spiritual world, and you think, oh, if I can create something nice for the Lord, for the Lord's own pleasure. The word creation does not exist in the spiritual world. You can't create anything there because everything is already created. So when you have this desire to create something for the Lord's enjoyment, that desire of creation cannot happen in the spiritual world. So you have to descend to the material world where you can have that desire fulfilled by you creating something for the Lord. So you don't fall to the material world because you were evil. You wanted to create something, and the spiritual world cannot be, you can't create anything there. Then you get to the material world, and gradually you begin to descend, then you come to this platform. And to me, it makes so much sense to me, because all this while I have been globbing with this. How is it possible that in the spiritual world where there's no sin, one can commit crime there for you to be thrown to the material world? But this is answer really gave me so much solace that yes, we did not fall here in the first place because we committed any sin, because in the spiritual world, there is no question of sin there. But we desire to serve the Lord in a different capacity, and that capacity is not found in the spiritual world. So we have to come to the material world to fulfill that desire. Then gradually, as we become associated with the material element, gradually, we fall to these states that we find ourselves. So this is how I can say it, because I know this question of fallible or infallible, if you want to talk about it, then we're not living here today. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the explanation, Prabhu. And
I know Prabhu Govinda is not satisfied, but this is the only thing I can do. I can't do more than this.
Okay, Prabhu, thank you for the explanation. Very nice. But I don't know if I hear you well. If I heard you well, you were saying about Srimati Radharani leaving her husband and following Krishna. Did I hear you well?
Yeah, in the Krishna book, is it like that? That Srimati Radharani was married to somebody in the scripture. He was married to somebody.
Yes, Srimati Radharani was married.
Yes, was married to somebody.
A married woman, I should say.
Yes. So, and all of them will go and meet the Lord in the forest late in the night. So you might say that, okay, if any devotee does this, you're a criminal.
Yeah. I mean, I know he was married, but the question I wanted to ask was that Krishna, when Krishna was born, he only opened his eyes after he has seen Srimati Radharani.
No, it's Radharani Radha.
It's
Radharani Radha who opened her eyes after seeing Krishna.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how? So therefore, so she got married to Krishna right from the infancy.
No, the
so
prediction
at what point did Radha got married?
Prabhu, let me just tell you one thing. See, there was a prophecy. There was a prophecy that whoever will come around for this little girl to see, that little girl, I mean, that person is going to be the husband. That's a prophecy. Like all of us here, we have our soulmates. We have the prophecy who you will marry. But at times, your parents will not allow you. So the parents of Radharani found a husband for her. Even though, according to the prophecy, the prediction, the astrology, the person that's supposed to be the eternal husband is Krishna. But the parents of Radha found a husband for her. And if you read the Krishna book, that's the Canto 10, it talks about how late in the night, Radharani have to sneak out with the other friends to go and meet Krishna in the forest for them to go and do the rasa dance and all that. So there was a material husband for Radharani. The scriptures, records that.
So the Simati Radharani had any children with a husband, with a material husband?
According to the scripture that I read, now there was nothing like any sexual connection between the material husband and Radharani. There was no sexual connection between them. I think it was also a pastime for Radharani to show her real love to Krishna, even though materially she's supposed to be married. That yes, the love of Krishna surpasses any material relations. That even if you are married, when it comes to satisfying the Lord, you must drop everything for that, the Lord's satisfaction. So I think it is also part of the whole drama, the whole pastime of the Lord, that even it is only Radharani, all the Brajabasi, the girls, all the gopis, they were all having their husbands. Not only Radha, all of them were having their husbands. And they were still, run away and go and meet Krishna. So like I'm saying, it's all part of the drama, how one must forsake any other relationship and try to please the Lord. So there's nowhere in the scripture that, to the best of my knowledge, that there was sexual connection between Radharani and the supposedly material husband.
All right.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Bhakta Hassan, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, please can I accept my humble respect of obeisance? All grace to Prabhupada and all grace to you. You agree?
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
Please, I like to interrupt because Hassan question may take us far away, but the topic of the ground, I just have a quick comment. So,
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So relationship between Krishna and the gopis is called Madhurya Ras. We all know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Madhurya Lila, right? But higher than Madhurya Lila is Parakya Bhava, Parakya Ras. In the spiritual world, there's another type of relationship which is higher than Madhurya, and that is called Parakya. Parakya Ras is the lover having another lover, something like that. It's higher than just being in connection like legal formal relationship. But then when the lover carries a love or his love to somebody else, that is called Parakya Ras. In the spiritual world, is considered to be the highest love. In the material world, is condemned. So we have to understand that. And of course, Abhimanyu was the husband of Radharani.
Radharani. Yes.
Yes.
Abhimanyu is the husband. And then if you get to know about the past life of Abhimanyu, in fact, she is actually one of the Shakis,
yes,
who came down, in a male form. Because of the intimate relationship between her and Radha. So he became husband. But actually, it's one of Radharani's servants in the spiritual world, one of the Shakis. Okay, so just quick comment. Hare Krishna.
Yes, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shrimad Prabhu. Bhakta Hassan, can you come back to ask your question?
Oh, yeah. Hare Krishna, Your Grace.
Hare Krishna.
Please kindly accept my humble respect of excellences. All glory to Gurudev, all glory to Srila Prabhupada, and all glory to the assembled devotees. Yeah, I just want to say I'm very happy to see Prabhu Jan because it brings me a lot of memories. And I want to thank you so much for your humbleness. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy to hear you today. I just want to thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. And thank you for being so humble, because the first time I met you, your humbleness is what attracted me to Krishna consciousness. So I pray to Krishna for you to continue this way and bless you a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Haribo, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, I'm grateful.
Hare Krishna.
Thanks for the blessings.
Hare Krishna. Saleka Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Sumasa Prabhu, for giving me the opportunity. I want to thank all of the contributors. I want to greatly thank the speaker also for the beautiful class. I just wanted to make a comment because based on Govinda Prabhu's question, the second question of Govinda Prabhu, that talking about the intimate pastimes of Lord Krishna and Radha, that's a deep subject matter. I won't go into that. I would not want to go into that. It's a different subject matter, and I don't think I want to go into that. But the other question, which borders around the what is in the purport of the text that we're reading today, I thank Ganesh Prabhu for answering. And this is a topical question, even within among scholars in the movement.
Yeah.
But the simple answer to that question is what I just wanted to give a comment to. The issue about eternally liberated and eternally conditioned souls. The first response is that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita himself that Maivamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, that every living entity is my eternal fragmental part and parcel. That is the original position of every Jiva Atma. So there is no eternally, the foundation of every Atma, Jiva Atma is that is eternally fragmental part and parcel of Krishna. That is the, if we want to talk about the beginning, that is the beginning point. So there is nothing like beginning or middle or end on the transcendental platform, because Krishna has no beginning, neither does he have an end. In the same way, the living entity has no beginning and no end. So when we talk about eternally conditioned and eternally liberated, it already indicates a moment in between the eternity. And now, what brings about that position of eternally liberated and eternally conditioned is the point at which Krishna gives independence to the Jiva Atma. And it is at that moment that the living entity decides what he wants to do with his independence that is given, the minute independence given to him. And that is what qualifies him as eternally conditioned or eternally liberated. It is the use of that independency of the Jiva Atma that positions him as eternally liberated or eternally conditioned. And then when we talk about eternally conditioned and eternally liberated, we also want to understand and remember the fact that there is nothing like dualities in the spiritual transcendental platform. So this eternally conditioned and eternally, it means that we are talking of manifestations of Krishna at a point, not from the beginning. But the beginning point is that the living entity is eternally part and parcel of God, Krishna, and Krishna, because it's the origin of everything, the only gift he gives to his Jiva Atma or to the living entity is the freedom. And that freedom is the cause of his eternally being liberated or eternally conditioned. So it is now the choice of use of that independency that positions the living entity as eternally conditioned or eternally liberated. So, and there are several examples that we can use this. In fact, I had one example of recent, somebody was explaining that when the, talking about non-partiality of Krishna, when the examiner puts this student in an examination hall, he has no intention to pass some and fail some. His position is that he wants to give them opportunity to express themselves based on what they have learned. And in the same way, Krishna has given the independence for the purpose of the living entity expressing, reciprocating his loving relationship with them. And now, what the student does with the exams is his own. What it comes with. That is what it comes with. So, whether he passes or fails. And someone cannot blame Krishna because just like you cannot blame the examiner that why is he standing in the examination hall and not helping the student, allowing them to struggle when he knows the answer. He should have told the student, then the purpose of examination itself will be lost. In the same way, the freedom that Krishna gives to the conditioned soul is completely absolute. And that absoluteness of the independency is what gives this conditioned soul or the Jiva Atma, using that word, the freedom to choose to be in this or that particular realm. So that is my explanation. It's a elaborate subject matter, and I was speaking on a forum recently about that, and these are some of the thoughts that I shared based on the research I have done. I hope this, I know Govinda Prabhu has a deeper thoughts on this also, but it's just to energize our mind in thinking about Krishna. So he's asking that question for the purification of everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. It's nice.
Salika Prabhu, I think the explanation you gave is really not different from what JNANA Prabhu has already given. It's more or less like giving more highlight on what he said. But if I may ask a question to what you're saying, in the spiritual world, unlike this material world where we have dualities, when you have dualities, then you choose. In the spiritual world, there is no duality. So where does the choice of being with the Lord or not being with the Lord comes about? But we'll go to Srimad Varaha Prabhu. Please, you may unmute.
Anyway, Hare Krishna. This topic, we've always tried to avoid it, We always try to avoid this.
We try to avoid, but it never gets avoided. It comes right.
So Salika tried to be scholarly over this matter, because the question you won't be able to answer. So just sad if I just throw one bomb and that can't even respond to that yet. But JNANA Prabhu said something, and that is worthy of note, that the infallible souls were part of the spiritual realm. They're not part of the manifested and the unmanifested world. So that is worthy of note, that the infallible souls are forever part of the spiritual world. They came from the Ladini energy. They're not part of the marginal or external energy. They're part of the Ladini energy, just manifested by Radharani. All servant of Krishna in the spiritual world. So there's no taint of any desire than to serve Krishna. Just like Sahari Prabhu said. No desire for any other choice. It doesn't exist there. It's just absent. So those who are struggling here, they are the ones who have never been in the spiritual world. And now they are working their way back. So this is the position of those who believe that the jiva does not fall from the spiritual world, based on scriptural references also. So I just want to poke Salika Prabhu that should not try to be too academic on this matter at all, because the positions are very clear.
Yes.
Okay, that's a quick word.
But Prabhu, before you go, let me bring in this in. Like I was telling you, that Prabhu Gurudas have a way of explaining this, and it makes so much sense.
Sure.
That the infallible souls, they are eternally in the spiritual world. They are not part of the manifestation that started from Mahavishnu.
That's not our idea. That's what Krishna said. That's what Krishna said himself. So we cannot change Krishna's word.
Yes, though they are eternally there, but from the Mahavishnu manifestation coming, all the souls, we have been in the material world, and we are the soul that Krishna says that when we go back home, we will never fall back again.
Very nice.
So that is the point. That is the point.
To buttress your point, one thing that we all have to accept, Krishna, who is the origin of all souls, like Salika Prabhu said, Krishna, who is the origin of all souls, said that there are two types. So can you argue with him? Krishna said there are two types. There is the fallible and the infallible. So point is clear. There's no argument. So we are the fallible ones. And the infallible will never come down here unless on a mission. Unless on a mission. Krishna himself said that in chapter 15, text 16. He said there are two types. So the creator of all the jiva himself said there are two types that are created. So why must we argue with him? All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Today we are not living here. That's me.
So that's an interesting topic. Thank you very much, Sriman Vara Charaprabhu. The fact is that when we look at Srila Prabhupada's commentary on this statement, there's something beautiful that Prabhupada said. Yes, Krishna, and Prabhupada is actually making commentary on that Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, 16, where he says there are two types of living entities. But also what is worthy of note also is that when we say two types, automatically there is duality. And we cannot attribute that to the originality of Krishna's manifestation. Because, why? Because at that moment, when we are already coming, when you are talking about two, automatically it's not longer that oneness with the Supreme. What Prabhupada's safe explanation was that those who are always in oneness with God, they are eternally infallible. And those who are attracted to the material manifestation of Krishna, they are eternally conditioned. That is Prabhupada's explanation. So, but my point here is that, and why I stick to this particular explanation is this, that Prabhupada explained that every living entity, whether they are fallible or infallible, their original position, they can say their foundation is that they are all fragmental part and parcel of Krishna. So the moment you talk about two, it's no longer the beginning. And that is what we should put into also consideration as we discuss this matter. But let me not, Ganesha Prabhu is our teacher today, so we'll listen to him.
Anyway, so there's something I wanted to say, Prabhu, that if we study the Srimad Bhagavatam very well, especially from the creation, we shouldn't forget that it says that the Lord, Krishna is there, then it comes to Balaram, then it comes to Shankarsan, then the four expansions comes. Then the Vishnu Tattvas. Before all these Vishnu expansions, the spiritual world has been there all these years, full of devotees and souls. So all these souls in the spiritual world, they are the infallible ones. Derived from the Mahavishnu expansion, from that point, all the souls that manifested are those of us in the material world. But we shouldn't forget, from that point of Mahavishnu, it's not directly the material world because it's kind of spiritual in a sense, where before the whole material universe manifested, and the Lord said he came from his skin pores, and he had to manifest inside all the planets. Before this point, there have been souls all this while in the Lord in the spiritual world. So the souls that manifested from this plane, these are considered to be the conditioned souls. And we have to struggle so hard so that we can go back home, back to Godhead. So with this kind of explanation, to me, it's easier for us to convince people out there. If not, it becomes very, very difficult, because the point is, the spiritual world is a perfect place. There is no question of imperfection in a perfect environment. So if anybody tells me the souls were in the spiritual world and they committed crime before they came to the material world, I will never accept that. Because in the spiritual world, there's no question of somebody committing any crime, because there can be imperfection in the spiritual world. But here's the case that there are so many souls, the manifested souls, that have a lot of bad things that we are doing. So the point is that we started from a point. So those that didn't start from that point, they have always been in the spiritual world, and there's no question of falling down. For them, they come to the material world for a drama, for a purpose, pastime. When they are done, they go back. But apart from that, all of us here, like including myself, I don't know all those here, but including myself, we came from the Mahavishnu platform, where this different Mahavishnu form comes. Lord Brahma comes from the flower petal, and this and that. We are from that point. So we have to struggle and go back home to go back and join the eternal liberated ones. So for me, this makes a lot of sense. And especially as a preacher who preaches to those who are not devotees, I'm able to convince them when I speak, because some of them have been reading our books, and they will ask this question: if care is not taken, you will confuse yourself and confuse them. So I use this point. When I use this point, then they are able to accept it, and it makes sense to them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. I think we may have to bring closure to today's class. It's been very interesting, JNANA Chakshi Prabhu, to say the least. Very nice and important subject matters highlighted, and we come here to hear Bhagavatam because it's so blissful to hear from the Bhagavatam, and two, to also serve the Supreme Lord in the form of hearing about him and his devotees, and also have the association of devotees, and more importantly, to learn from these pastimes and use them in our own lives. So we pray that we can learn from these wonderful pastimes and then apply them in our own lives. But we've been saying it that we have to arrange for this transcendental talk, but we hope we should be doing it, because this topic comes and goes on its own accord. Nobody tries to bring it.
It comes by itself.
Somehow it comes, and I have kind of done a lot of readings in this regard, and I will be more than happy to share with devotees at the right time.
Good.
No, not this time, because this time we cannot. We've already spent so much time. But we should try to arrange and also encourage devotees to attend, because it's a very interesting subject matter.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, John Chakshu, thank you so much for the class. And at this point, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace JNANA Chakshi Prabhu. Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare,
Rama, Hare
Rama, Hare Hare.
Pancha Kalpataru.
We will call for unity now.
All glories to His praise.
Yes, Prabhupada.